It's not fair to call them myths. There are people out there for whom this is a sincere belief, or so I'm told.
That's what I was. You told me that. But anyway.
And you guys can stop emailing me, you Zeus lovers.
So you have this, and there's an understanding to it. They're basically that upper layer where you're saying people are doing all these things I don't understand. Mm-hmm. So I don't know what makes the lightning. Somebody's fashioning it. So you've got the guy who's like hammering out the lightning bolts for Zeus, and Zeus is hurling them down, and Apollo's dragging the sun across the sky, and all the things that seem to happen for reasons that no one can understand get the argument from ignorance, and then it gets applied to the gods.
Right.
And in essence, if you go to war and you're victorious, and you're good, and you're a real fighter, you go to Hades and you get to go to whatever part of it is good for the warriors and the victorious. If you led a good life, you might get to the Elysian fields. You may just wander around, aimlessly as one of the shadows in Hades. It's partly dependent on whether or not you excel in life or just died and led a normal life. But you had these ancient concepts, that predate the Christian model of punishment and reward, like a system of punishment and reward, where you get something a little bit better if you were a little bit more excellent in your life, or you get something a little bit worse if you did something a little bit worse in life. You might get tied to a rock with poison snake venom dripping on you, for stealing fire. So you definitely have these eternal punishments. You can push a rock up a hill that keeps coming back down, and that could be your eternity. So you have that, and then you have, like, for example, in Egypt, you've got the idea that after you die, they weigh your heart, and if you were a good person in life, then okay, you get to go on, you have a happy life in the afterlife. If your heart doesn't, it's like too heavy or whatever, then something not so good happens. So the system of reward and punishment is no mystery because people utilize that. Animals utilize that. Social animals have systems of rewards and punishments. An individual screws up, the individual is punished or somehow corrected. The individual does well, and they're rewarded for that. You might get better, move up the hierarchy or whatever. But there's always this connection. Like when you have karma, you've got the idea of reincarnation and the idea that, okay, you're going to pay for the things you've done that were harmful in your past. You harmed people. You did things that were wrong. So in your next life, you're going to get another chance, and you can make it better. You can kind of work off some of this karma by doing good and not doing so much bad, and you just keep doing that. And coming back is sort of the penalty, the way of working off the things that you did that weren't good. And then when you finally get it all worked off, you don't have to come back anymore. And that's the reward. So you've always got the reward and punishment but it's a judgment on you and your life and things that you did that were socially acceptable, socially unacceptable. So you do this, you're punished for it. You don't do this, that's good. Or you do something good and you get a reward for it. And you have in the Old Testament, you've got the Hebrew idea that you pay in this life. So a bad thing happens to you, that's because you must have done something to piss off God. Or if a good thing happens to you, well, that's, God is smiling on you. And you have the one exception, which is the book of Job, which deviates quite a bit from the main ideology of no, there's not a system of rewards and punishments that is outlined in the Old Testament books.
Well, there is, but we can set it aside and just mess with you, just to be messing with you. Is kind of the way Job does.
Right, but I'm saying that in they don't have like an afterlife system of punishment and reward. They had a here and now system of punishment and reward, which was people just assumed if something good was happening to you, God was smiling on you. If something bad happens to you, God is not smiling on you. Or God is angry with you, or you need to go figure out what you did wrong, because that's why something bad is happening to you. And even that attitude is reflected in Job, even though the central message of Job, like you said, it's more about the bad things happen because they're screwing with you. But the idea that it was common for the Hebrews to believe that if things were going well for you, you did good. And if things were going badly for you, it's because God was angry. And all of Job's friends reflect that attitude. So then you have, though, a system that comes up that starts to imply that it's not really about what you do or don't do in your life anymore. It's more about just the idea that you're inherently going to have problems and that everybody's going to require this salvation, that you fell from grace, that there was a fall, and And then from that point forward, you are unacceptable. And your children's children are unacceptable, and your children's children's, and there's nothing you can do to become acceptable anymore. You cannot accomplish anything through your own merits that will ever make you an acceptable human being worthy of reward. It's just mercy. God is either going to be merciful to you or he's not, because if you get what you deserve, if you get justice, you're getting punishment, or you're not getting the reward. And one of the things I noticed was that there's two things. There's a doctrine of original sin, and some Christians accept this and some Christians don't. And then you have also the doctrine of hell, and some Christians accept this and some Christians don't.
Right.
But whether you accept original sin or not, and whether you accept hell or not, you still think people need salvation.
Although for the people for the Christians who might reject original sin and reject hell, what they mean by salvation is maybe something entirely different. That people need to be saved from their own base natures, and that in fact,
that's exactly
in their life, they can be better.
I think they can strive, but they will never. There is never going to be that striving is almost futile, because the striving is just symbolic. You'll never merit salvation. You get it due to mercy.
Well, I would say that the people who reject perhaps original sin and hell, that they would also reject salvation in any sense related to like an afterlife. That they would, when you get to that point where you've taken whatever's in this book and said, well, obviously this bit's a little silly, and whoa, nobody lived in a fish for 3 days, and wait, this doesn't make sense. And then they respin this into this modern theology of, okay, well, this is mostly metaphor, and it's about how you should live your life. They adopt basically a more Jewish perspective. The modern kind of liberal, non-literal Christians have adopted a more Jewish perspective, where this is a guidebook about how you should live your life, and some of them would probably even reject the idea that there's some heaven that you're going to get. So I don't know if that applies to what you're saying, because now they've rejected salvation too.
The few Christians I've spoken to that would reject original sin and hell, and I understand what you're saying, that if somebody says this is wholly metaphorical, if they're like in a Joseph Campbell vein, where they say this is just a metaphor, like along the lines of any other mythology, that's not quite where I'm getting to. Where I'm talking about would be the person who says that there is no hell, is simply separation from God. And so I do strive to be with God. I do believe that I will be with God, and that after death I am an immortal being, and that I will be with God. This is the person that says my base nature, whether it's original sin or not, is what separates me from joining with God ultimately. And what they've created is a doctrine that says it's wrong to be a human being.
Yeah.
And it's fine to be a dog and to do all the same things that you would get in trouble for being human, as far as like the religious doctrine. Like you can do any other animal can do these things, but a human being cannot do these things.
Which, oddly enough, even though I haven't read my entire Gift of the Matchless Gift, I did read the first couple pages. And from the first couple pages, they're talking about something similar. The purpose of the Hare Krishna movement is to bring man back to his original consciousness, which is Krishna consciousness, clear consciousness, because the consciousness that we experience now is material consciousness, which is equivalent to insanity. When a man is haunted by ghosts, he can speak only nonsense. Similarly, anyone who is under the influence of material nature should be considered haunted, and whatever he speaks should be considered nonsense. Wow. I mean, that's all of us. Don't get me, I'm not going to go ahead and start ripping into this now. But what they're talking about there is a very similar idea, that there is something inherently wrong with us, who we are, our nature, and yet, boy, there's a huge logical fallacy right there, in that the person saying this is also affected by material nature, and so if I'm not supposed to trust anything that's said by somebody infected with material nature, then clearly I can't trust what he just said, which was to not trust him.
I'm going to guess that somewhere down the line they're going to claim some sort of cleansing or enlightenment.
Yes, that this individual has it has
Overcome
gone
it,
beyond,
yeah.
yes, overcome
That
it.
transcends
I'm expecting that as well. But it's the same type of there's something wrong with us, and here's a way to fix it.